Yeah, so my name is Ron Northcutt, and this session is Winning the UX Game. I'm a Principal Solutions Architect at Acquia. I've been there about 5 years, and I lead our demo team. And the demo team is completely focused on building out the assets and the tools that we use to go out and show off how great Drupal can be. And today I want to talk about that because I think that a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot you can do pretty easily to make it a lot better than what comes out of the box. So we're going to talk about that today. So about me, my name is Ron. I've been using Drupal since 4.7, which is actually was right before 4.7 because from 4.6 to 4.7 was actually a pretty significant change. That's a long time ago because I'm old. I did a lot of freelance stuff, had a small dev shop for a while, moved in to doing some development at a company that serviced nonprofits. Ended up at Acquia about 5 years ago, doing solutions architecture, sales engineer basically, and then have since moved into demo team lead. So I've been doing Drupal for a very long time. I really, really love the community, love the framework, and I'm really glad that we can try and contribute back. So today, this is what we're going to be talking about. First, we're going to talk about some of, not all of, but some of the major UX initiatives that are ongoing in the community today. And if you want to contribute to them, excuse me, it's a good thing to do, even if it's just to make your opinion known. We need more good ideas and more people pitching in. We talked a little bit about Layout Builder. I'm sure most people here are probably familiar with Layout Builder. There's a few little things we want to touch on and some things that are coming up. And then we're going to dig into Demo Framework. Demo Framework is an open source distribution that my team builds and maintains. It's D.O, namespace is DF. We do most of our development on GitHub. It's all open source. You guys can go see it and you can take a look at it. But we'll be using that as kind of a framework for understanding some of the stuff that we put in there to improve the user experience. And then we'll take a look, depending on time, we'll take a look at an actual Demo Framework site and kind of see some of it in action. Sound good? Awesome. So some of the major UX initiatives. I actually did a very similar presentation a little over a year ago at Colorado camp. And then I had to just say that there was this new admin theme that was being worked on and it's coming. Well, it's here now. So how many people have heard of Claro? A few? Okay. So Claro is a new admin theme. It's going to be in core. Well, it's in core now. I think it's going to be in 8.8 maybe. I know it's going to be in Lightning this quarter for sure. It is a replacement for 7. It's been completely rebuilt from the ground up. It's pretty nice. It's very clean, and we actually have our own sub theme that we've just started, like in the last week, for our demo. So we just switched over to Claro, and that was it's a pretty cool thing that you guys should look at. Also, has anybody heard of Media Library in 8? I had not heard of it until not too long ago. This is going to be stable in core, supposed to be 8.8, unless something slips. Basically, it replaces Entity Browser for managing media. It's going to be in Lightning. We're now switching over to it. I've been very, very pleasantly surprised at how good it is and some of the stuff that has been done. That's been driven a lot by Adam Honig, who is a lead engineer for Lightning. He's been a lot of stuff in the media space, and we're going to see a little bit of this today as well. This is another kind of longer project. Basically, what we're trying to do, I believe it's been delayed until Drupal 9, but the goal is to eventually get to where we have the ability to completely decouple the admin experience, just like we can on the front end now. So there's been talk about creating a bunch of different React components. Some of that work has been started. There's been lots of discussions. If that's something interesting to you, then again, definitely chime in, because this is kind of the way that things are going. So let's talk a little bit about Layout Builder. And let's see here. Oh yeah, I'm just blowing through these. This is good. Layout Builder is stable in core since 8.6. It has a number of modules you can see here. And actually, layout discovery is used by panels as well. We actually built the original version of Demo Framework in Drupal 8 using panels, because Layout Builder wasn't a thing there. That was in the 3.x branch of Demo Framework. It's still the way it is. And actually, the demo team, our demo team actually built the IPE, the in-place editor for panels, because one didn't exist. And so we built one, assuming that someone would come along with something better, and no one did. So everyone's been using it. So yay, demo team. We can also apply layouts to fields, and we can use layouts for content, not just content like landing pages, but also content like templates. And in fact, all of the templates and display modes for the content in Demo Framework use Layout Builder for management. So we're trying really hard to get that stuff done. And for folks that remember panels in the early days, like in 7, it could be really clunky, didn't quite work so well. Panels in 8 was a lot better, but could still be a little bit more difficult sometimes to get everything working right. The nice thing about Layout Builder is it's in core, it's the way everything's going, and everything plays nicely with it, so lots of attention given to it. So yes, we've talked about these things. For those people that don't know, one of the things that's really interesting is that in panels, in 8 at least, you pretty much had whatever layouts that you had. And you chose which one you wanted, and then you went to town. There was something in D7 where you could kind of create layouts on the fly and kind of build it in the UI. It was a little clunky, but it worked. But that's what this is. So here, Layout Builder allows you to go in and totally define unique layouts from these different patterns that we have. So makes it nice because then your content creators can go through and have a lot more flexibility and control, but they don't have full control to do crazy, funky things. We want to keep everybody safe. Also, this is actually really, really powerful, inline blocks. So with Layout Builder, there's this concept of inline blocks. And an inline block it's a block like normal, except it's not going to show up in the list of blocks. And basically, it's invisible to the rest of the site unless you're on that page. So what that means is that if I'm creating some content and I'm using Layout Builder and I've got created a hero and I've got a view over here and I've got an image I put here and a video and I built out on my pages, if I do that for all of my pages and I've got a large site, I could end up with hundreds, thousands of blocks floating out there, which gets unwieldy and difficult to manage. Then you get other problems, like somebody decides to change this block, and now suddenly in 5 other places it's changed, and they didn't realize that's what they were doing because sometimes people that are creating content don't understand the intricacies of how this works. So what inline blocks allows us to do is it allows us to create custom, non-reusable blocks. So they're just going to be unique to this piece of content. It's stored in the with that particular revision of the page. So now you've got revision control with those blocks without having to worry about revisions of blocks versus revisions of blocks placed in the page. So it simplifies things a lot. Makes it easier for things like translations and things like that as well. And it actually is not at the code level necessarily, but functionally has a lot of similarities to the way paragraphs works. And so the fact that we've got this in core and it offers a lot of that similar functionality means that... Has anybody used paragraphs? Okay. Has anybody run into problems with paragraphs, like trying to scale or... Okay, that...
Translations.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, not to speak ill of paragraphs as a project, because it's really great. It has some really great use cases. I've seen some people be really successful with it, but I've also seen people have some problems. And so, hopefully, now we've got some of that functionality, if not most of it, in a way that gets rid of some of those problems. And if you want to use it very easily, Layout Builder, inline blocks, and everything you need for it, you can grab Lightning Layout, the 2.x branch of Lightning Layout. The 1.x branch uses panels, so now you can choose. The nice thing about that is that you don't have to have a full Lightning installation. You can pick which Lightning modules you want. media, workflow, inline, API, etc. So I highly recommend you take the pieces that you need. One thing that's really cool that's coming out, I'm hoping that we see, there is a module out there that is a holding space for this, and the work has started. The designs are largely finished, and so the Drupal acceleration team, which is a team of engineers at Acquia that only does Drupal stuff. It's, Angie Byron and Tim Plunkett. It's run by Matt Grasmick. A lot of the big core developers some of them are on that team. They're actually working on a bunch of UX improvements for Layout Builder. Because that is the one problem I personally have with Layout Builder is it's just ugly. So what the team's working on now is actually going through, and there's been tons and tons of work behind the scenes on usability and pulling in actual UX people instead of just developers who have maybe good ideas about things, people who have opinions about how things should work, doesn't work, getting feedback from others. So I'm actually really excited when this lands. Hopefully we'll see something in Q1 or Q2, maybe sooner. It's possible. But keep your eyes open because this is gonna be a real big improvement for all of us. So let's talk about Demo Framework. So Demo Framework is a distribution. The namespace is DF. It's open source. You can go grab it right now and you can play with it. And it's built on top of Lightning, but it adds in a bunch of the configuration and the contrib modules, as well as some custom modules that we create for our demos. Pretty much all of our official demos are built on top of this, unless there's a good reason to do otherwise. One of the things that's pretty cool, we're going to talk about a little bit, isn't really related to UX, but it's still really cool, so you should know about, is we've got a module called Scenario that allows you to create, basically you can think about like content packs. So if I install Demo Framework, out of the box it's going to have like a travel scenario. But now we have the ability to pre-package content configuration into bundles and be able to pull that in. So by the end of the year, when the 4.x branch of DF is finished, we'll have the manager and the UI in there. So basically you can go in and say, I'm using the travel one. Well, I'm going to another meeting, I want to show Drupal, I want to use the business one. So you click a button, removes all the old content, pulls in all the new content, rebuilds the site for you without having to reinstall. It's kind of like a partial database import. And it gives you the ability to import and export those content packs yourself. So what that means is, if you're using Demo Framework, whether it's for playing around, for testing, for showing customers about some of the things that could be possible, you could actually easily create your own demos that are reusable by just creating content and clicking a button to export. And then later on, you can import that file. It's a single file called the CDF file, and reset all of your content. Very, very cool. Some of the stuff that we create in Demo Framework, where it makes sense, we do try and put in contrib space. And we also, depending on how useful we find it on the team, how customers are responding to it, we also will then go to like the Lightning team, and we will start bugging them to put some of our stuff in there so that more people can get access to it. So some examples are, as we're going to see here, moderation sidebar. If anyone has seen that, that came from demo team. Moderation dashboard. There's another number of other tools that actually our team created, put out there in contrib space, and then also now have gone back and gotten those included in Lightning. And we're constantly doing that. So the more that we build these things out, the more we're trying to make sure that they're useful for other people. So this is kind of I know the Lego analogy is old. I know, guys, come on. But I think this is very apt, because when we start talking about, this is one of the things that I think is one of the value that we provide here. If you go and you get Drupal core, you got a box of Legos, right? And now you can go build anything, assuming you know what you want to build and how you're going to build it, and you know what additional Legos you're going to have to pull into your box, etc. But it's great. Lightning is a little bit more like a packaged kind of thing. Takes care of media for you, takes care of like workflow stuff, layout stuff, setting up and configuring a lot of those things. But you still got to build the site. You still got to assemble it. Demo framework is more like the setups you see in the Lego store. It's already built. It's already baked. It's already done. You can, of course, go in and pull pieces off and put pieces on and do what you need to do, but it's designed so that you can quickly install and set up a demo site that's fully functional, has a great experience, and allows you to highlight not only the power of Drupal and open source, but also the abilities of your team, so that you're not spending all of your time trying to recreate these things, which is what we used to do. So at a high level, these are some of the goals. As I mentioned, we're on the 4.x branch of Demo Framework right now, which is kind of a big shift in the way that we've done things before. Before in the 3.x branch, the demo was a lot more monolithic. It was like this big grand story, and all of these pieces are tied together. And there was a design team that built up the site that was really cool and modern, but also complicated and difficult to reuse because it was very specific. So with Demo Framework 4, we kind of took a step back, and so we designed it to be a little bit more flexible, try to make it actually more modular, so that when one of our sales engineers is going in to talk to a customer, they can actually say, okay, this customer is interested in these 5 things, so I'm going to take Demo Framework, I'm going to turn these things on, and I'm going to add this extra thing in, so I can very quickly get something that I need. There was also a lot of this has actually come out of some internal discussions at Acquia. I took part in a couple of workshops in the spring around kind of this idea of like, talking about what customers need, what they end up with. I was in a workshop for a week with people from our professional services, people from product side, with engineers, with some UX people. And there were a couple of things that I found very interesting that came out of that. The first one is that through that week of talking about this, I noticed that there were these 4 primary types of data that we kept coming back to. Content, components, media, and taxonomy. Components, of course, being blocks, but trying to speak in ways that our customers might understand. And we kept coming back to this over and over again. So on the demo team, what we realized is that if we focused on making sure that we've got this right, contents, components, media, and taxonomy, then we can actually build out a ton of different types of applications using these reusable components, because if these are good, then anything else you might need to add, you can modify as you need to. And we're going to take a look at the data model in a little bit more detail in the next slide. We also have some different integration examples that are baked in. So right now I'm working on some work with refactoring the PDB module, which my next session will be talking a little bit more about. We're going to have that in Demo Framework by the end of the year. Also ACF. Has anybody heard of ACF, Acquia Commerce Framework? Maybe a few, probably not too much. Acquia Commerce Framework is it's a reference architecture. You can think of it kind of like the example module. So it's open source on GitHub. My team built it because we were being asked more and more to create demos where there was a headless e-commerce integration, whether it's BigCommerce or it's Salesforce Commerce Cloud or Hybris or whatever it might be. So what we found working with customers is that there's some specific patterns that we like to use for performance reasons and to balance out the power of the content creator with the ability to create the experience you want in Drupal. And ACF uses that. It makes heavy use of the decoupled components, so we'll see that strategy in there as well. So we're going to have that. We're actually in the middle of working on that as well. And then, of course, API endpoints. But that's easy because it's Drupal. So we just turn on JSON API, and we've got a great story there. We also hopefully will have some potential demo applications that are designed to work with it. Whether or not we get there depends on if we get the resources to hire a front-end developer, because we currently don't have one, except for me, and I'm not one. So we'll see how that goes. So in that same workshop that I was talking about, and it was really great because talking to the professional services team, who's amongst the people from that team, they've built out dozens and dozens and dozens of, they've been involved with very large projects across a bunch of different types of customers, a bunch of different types of use cases. And what we came away with, I thought was interesting, we were aiming to try and figure out what's that 80% to 90% use case in terms of a data model. And this is basically what we came up with. For content types, just 6 different content types. Articles, could be a blog, could be a knowledge base, could be a press release. Pages, both a static page as well as a landing page using Layout Builder. Person, not as a user, but as point of information, like speaker at a conference, executive on the About Us, our team page, etc. Location, of course, addresses and information, hours, open, that type of thing. Events, another popular one, and then of course product information. And so what we found is that with these 6 content types, you can really build out most of the websites you might possibly want to demo or show, and you can also possibly build out other applications using this same thing. For components or blocks, these are some of the blocks that we have right now. I find that the top ones, the hero, the existing content, and the media are the ones that I use in demos like all the time. And this obviously is where you can really start to go crazy. But again, with this set, you can do a lot of really cool, really interesting things really quickly. For media, we're kind of spoiled because we just inherit everything that Lightning does for media, and we don't need anything else. So that's a nice, easy win. And then taxonomy. This one was actually very interesting to me. I mean, obviously tags, right? I mean, that's a gimme. Category, which we have in there, is for like trying to organize by like site section, trying to figure out how you're breaking up your site. That's where that is. And then the other interesting thing is that we actually have a type taxonomy for each one of the content types, and that's where we get some more flexibility. So going back again, like to the article, you have an article content type, right? And it's got a title, maybe a subtitle, maybe an image, and a body field, some taxonomy fields. You don't need much more than that. But is it a blog? Is it a knowledge-based article? Is it a press release? Is it an actual article, which is somehow different from a blog sometimes? It depends. You might want to do different things with those. So by using this, we have article type. You can actually go in and define what you want how you want to break that article into different types. So now you've got one content type, article, but you might have a blog page, you might have a press release page, and you might have a knowledge base page. Same structured data, but organized differently. Really, really handy, and we've been pretty pleased with how well this is working so far. Okay. This is that bonus that we talked about earlier with the scenarios. You can see here we've got the list so we can choose what types of things we're going to be exporting and packaging. And if things go the way that they look like they're going, then scenario, which is its own module, will also be able to support using multiple scenarios at the same time. So you might go in and you might have like a content pack which has content for a financial services company. Say that's a type of customer you work with a lot. You might have another one which has like generic press release content that could be used in any scenario because people aren't necessarily going to look that deep. You can use this so that you can mix and match and build out those scenarios and kind of make your own thing. Very cool. Interesting note is it uses the Content Hub 2 module. Has anybody heard of Content Hub? It's an Acquia product. Okay. Doesn't require the service, just the open source module. So you can actually, it goes in and you give it a piece of content, for example, and there's another module called DepCalc, and it will go and look at every single reference and every reference to that reference and every reference to that reference, all the way down to find every single dependency and package those together. It's actually ridiculously cool, and we're hoping to do some more cool stuff with it coming up soon. One other bonus, and then we'll get into some more of the UX things. We also have a cool Unsplash. Has anybody heard of Unsplash? So unsplash.com is a great site. You can go and get royalty-free images, so you don't have to worry about copyrights, which is nice. Here we've got a very simple implementation that allows you to put in the ID for the image, and it will pull in the image for you. What's really cool is that works with the scenario module. So when we ship our scenarios, they've got content and images, but we're not actually shipping the images. We're just shipping the ID. So now we don't have to package those up and all of that. It's just going to pull it in when it needs it. We are, at some point in the next year, going to build out a browser. So you could go in and say, hey, I want to add an image to this page. And then one of the tabs would be Unsplash, and I could go and search Unsplash right in my site, pick the image I want, and it'll pull it in for me. Which is not only useful for building demos, but could be ridiculously useful for anybody who has a Drupal site. So very cool stuff, so keep an eye on that. Okay, so we've talked about demo framework, what we build, why we build it. Now I want to kind of break it down and start looking at some of the actual pieces that we have, the modules and things that are inside. So from a content management perspective, one of the first ones is moderation sidebar. Has anybody seen moderation sidebar? Okay. So this is now in Lightning. This is another thing that came from the demo team a couple years ago. Sam Mortensen, does anybody know Sam? Smorty? Ridiculously smart dude. Like, really, really smart. Really awesome guy, too. Used to be on our team. He's since left. So what this does is this uses the sidebar module in core, but pretties it up a little bit, and it allows us to move everything out. And what we're going to see in the demo is that you'll notice there's no view, edit tabs above my content, because I don't have to show them because I have this sidebar, which will pull out or go away. So now as a content creator, when I'm actually looking and browsing the site, I'm getting the actual experience. And when I need those administrative tools that we see there, you pull out the sidebar and you can just go to town. We've also got some other cool things that tie into that you're going to see as well. Moderation note. This one's just in here for fun. I don't know how practical this is in a grand scheme. Again, Sam Mortensen wrote it. And if you'll notice down there in the screenshot, you see the highlighted yellow. When you enable moderation note, it will allow you to go in, if you have permissions, right? Highlight something and then add this note that's tied to that. It's kind of like commenting in a Google Doc or something, but it's inside of Drupal. And so you can see when it created the note in the sidebar, not only does it have a note, it's got who that's assigned to, and you can actually have a comment thread related to that. So not as full function and fully featured as something like Google Docs, but could be really useful for the right team. It's the kind of thing that allows you to have a really collaborative experience inside the tool. This is the other piece here. Because the notes are assigned, somebody could log in, look at their dashboard, and see the things that they need to work on. So could be a really cool tool. And who knows, maybe somebody out there thinks it's so cool they want to go and make it even better. I would not stop you. Moderation dashboard is another thing that we create on Demo Team. It is also in Lightning. This one is reasonably useful out of the box. It's basically just a layout page with some view blocks in it that give you some information that you as an author might be interested in. Part of the value I see for this is that it's actually a really good starting place. So you can take this, you can turn it on, you can have this functionality so that when your authors or your content creators log in, this is the first thing they see. So kind of their dashboard for using the site. And it's all relevant, to them, but you can also modify it. So if your workflow is different, if you have different types of things you want to highlight, you can change everything here, which is super helpful. Media browser enhancements. You'll notice that we're replacing all of this with Media Library. So I kept this here because this is something that is out there. But also I wanted to highlight the fact that, again, we're seeing this move to push more of this UX functionality, not only into Drupal as a project, but into the actual core of the thing itself. And it takes time. It takes time for this to happen, especially in core. But we're seeing a lot more of that activity now than I've ever seen in core before, which is really exciting. Content browser enhancements. This is still a little up in the air in terms of how we're going to be responding with this. Right now we're using Content Browser, which relies on Entity Browser, and we've got some enhancements in here. We're going to have to figure out, we just this week pulled out that module, Material Admin Support, which was providing some of this. So we're still trying to figure out exactly how we're going to replicate what we like about this and find ways to make it better. But that's also on a roadmap, probably for this quarter. Responsive Preview, popular, lovely little tool. A lot of people know about it. This is actually can also be really useful when we look at the display modes preview that's coming up next. Has anybody heard of this module, View Modes Display? I love this module. It has been so useful to me in my life, particularly from the standpoint of talking and trying to explain why Drupal is so good. So if you'll notice up here we go. If you'll notice over here, you see over the side we've got that little button. Oh, dagnabbit, it's not there. There's a button there that will be there that says Preview. And what that does, I had to chunk it up because it's a long page, but it will render this piece of content you're looking at in every single display mode that you've created, all on a single long page. So you can go to one place and see what this content's going to look like in all those display modes. Now this is ridiculously helpful when you're setting things up and you're configuring things. It's really, really nice for content creators. They love being able to go in and see what their stuff's going to look like and then be able to adjust. Do I want to change my subheading? Do I want to make it longer, shorter? Is that image going to look good in all of these different variations? And they can do all of this while their content is still unpublished. And so they've got a lot more visibility. As I mentioned, I really like this because when I'm talking to customers about Drupal and why it's important, often at some point in the conversation we'll talk about structured data and why structured data versus just a page builder that generates HTML, why structured data is so powerful is you can feed it out through an API, and this helps me visually say this is why structured data is important, because I can take the same data and now I can provide an infinite number of different ways to display it. And so now I can choose and create. And when we go in and actually do a demo and we embed a piece of content like an article, then I can go in and say, well, here I want it to be a card. Here I want it to be a teaser. Here I want it to be featured. And again, really, really helpful. One of those lovely little gems that it's unfortunately not widely known about, but that's why we're doing this. Since now you guys are going to try it out, and you're going to be like, wow, Ron was right. It's cool. And then you're going to go tell your friends about it, and they're going to tell their friends about it, and then pretty soon everybody knows about this cool module. Revision log default, another Sam Mortensen gem. This is one of those things that it's a really good example of one of those things that you can do that seems really simple, but over time it really does make a difference. So if you're going in, how many people work with revisions in Drupal ever? Okay. How many people put a revision note every time they change something? Right. Nobody. Nobody does that, right? So what revision log default does is it tries to fill that gap. It's going to put a default message in there based on what it can figure out about what you're doing. So you can see on the left here, if you're just going through and iterating and making changes to your content, and you want to go back and look at an earlier version, you're going to have to, it's not horrible, but you're going to have to click through and find the one you want and go back and, is it this one? Okay, I think I found it, we're good. With this on, now you've got some type of note in there for every revision that's going to tell you something. It may be super helpful, like updated title and body, or it may not. Just, it could be you just changed something and it doesn't know what you changed. But again, really, really great little tool. Doesn't really cost much, and when it's one of those things that when you have it and you rely on it, you don't realize how valuable it is until you're forced to work without it. And that's when you see how useful it can be. All right, so from an admin perspective, checking time. Okay, we're doing good. Admin toolbar, number one. Does anybody use admin toolbar? Yes? I've had so many conversations about trying to get admin toolbar in Lightning. Because I think it's like the first thing everybody installs. If you don't already have it, it's the first thing you get, right? So that you can take 3 clicks down to 1. Super useful. Might end up there at some point. But if you don't know, you should grab it. Heck, I think it should be in core, to be honest, but that's just me. Next, focal points. Anybody heard of the focal point module? Oh, I love focal point module. So a lot of times, we talk about image styles, and image styles are really valuable and really useful because then the system is making a lot of decisions for you. It's making the media fit where it needs to fit the right way, which once you set it up, it's kind of set it and forget it. Up until somebody uploads an image like this that is very tall and narrow, and then they go to generate a hero with it, and now suddenly all you're seeing is his midsection because it crops it to the center by default. Now what you could do is you could use manual crop, which has some functionality, but it's a little squirrely, it's a little weird, it's making the user think, which is one of the things we try to avoid, and it doesn't just work. So what the focal point module allows you to do is for your media, you can actually go in and you can set the most important point. It's just a little crosshair. And so in this point, I put it right between his eyes, I believe, just right at the bridge of his nose. Probably should have been a little higher so that in that hero image it didn't cut off the top of his head, but cutting off the top of his head for something like that is a heck of a lot better than just only showing his body, right? The other thing that I like is, that's the reason I chose this screenshot, is that it's got this preview tool, which kind of like the other preview I showed you, allows you to see this piece of media across all of the different display modes for that piece of media. So you can scroll through there and you can see how it's going to look in all of the different sizes. Really, really useful, really, really powerful, makes a much better experience. And I found that while people will often ask for cropping, because that's what they know and they want that control, when they see the difference between cropping for all the variations versus just make sure that this is the important thing and the system takes care of it, they love that. So if you're not using this in your projects, then you probably should be. Okay, JSON API Explorer. This is relatively new. Has anybody heard of this? It's a bit of a stretch, but if you're a developer and you've tried to use JSON API, which is super powerful but can be a little tricky to figure out, you can make your call to JSON API and get the data back that you want, but it's not necessarily going to be exactly what you want in the format. You can pass through, there's a ton of different parameters you can pass through to customize that to get exactly what you want. But again, it's a little arcane and you got to trial and error to figure it out. What this tool does, it provides this visual tool. So you can see here, I've gone in and I've chosen specific things like the UID because I want to get information about the user and that object. And grouping things together and figuring out which pieces of related data that I want to pull in. It then shows me underneath the summary of what the return's going to be, and then that top ends up being the final call that I'm going to need to use. So this can cut a development time down in half. I include this in here, number one, because it's cool, and number two, developers are people too, right? So UX, DX, we're all trying to work this stuff out. So if you have a project that's going to be using JSON API, highly recommend checking this out. I think it's in beta right now, but it's pretty stable as much as I've used it. But again, it's not one of those, you're building the whole site on top of it. It's a tool that you're adding in. So make your developers happy and they'll love you. So config, there's some of this is stuff that we talked about a little earlier. We're going to go through it again. So we've got, as I said, we build demo framework on top of Lightning. So we've got the stuff that we have in there, but again, we're trying to ship with some additional configuration that makes things faster and easier. So these are those block types that we showed you. Remember the list? Well, we actually have those and they're in here. And you're welcome to go and grab them or steal them or modify them or do what you want to do. Same thing with the content types we've talked about. Those are in here as well. And again, something you can use, even if you only use Demo Framework just as something to play around with things and go figure out what you like and don't like, it can be a really helpful thing. You might go in and say, oh, this event content type's cool, but I don't like this field. I wish we had that field. I need this field. So go ahead and change it. Make sure within the framework that you like the way it is, and then just export the config and put it in your module. Like this can speed it up if you use this as a tool, which we do on our team actually. Those media types, again, just the stuff from Lightning Media. So nothing major there, but again, it serves most of what we need. Image styles, a lot of really good image styles. So again, something else you might want to take, although the responsive image styles is actually, I think, more useful. Has anybody worked with responsive image styles in Drupal? So what this does is Drupal actually takes advantage of, I think it's the picture element in HTML5. It's picture, something like that. What it allows you to do is you've got this element in HTML that defines the image that you want. But then it also provides a number of other image variations. And at the browser level, based on the breakpoints you've set up, in the size screen, instead of pulling down this image for the mobile device, it will say, oh, wait, we're on mobile, so we're just going to grab this one instead. Super, super powerful. Really, really cool. Once you got this thing going, man, it hums right along. But if you haven't tried it, I recommend you go try and play with it because it can be a little complex. There's just so many options and there's so many things to think about. It's really, really nice to have an example. If I had to figure this thing out on my own, if somebody smarter than me hadn't done it first, it would have taken me 5 times as long. But going in and having an example that I can see or possibly modify makes my life so much easier. So definitely recommend checking that out. And then those view modes like we talked about. I think this is one of those things that Drupal's had for a while, but folks don't think about too much. Now that we've got things like Layout Builder where we're reusing and embedding content a lot more and giving content creators a lot more control over how that's going to be displayed, this starts to get really, really useful. Okay, enough talking. We've got like 18 minutes left. I think we can jump into a demo and take a look. Fantastico. Okay, so this is, oh, you know what? Yeah, I did not change that. That's good. So my password is here because I just did the install last night. So this is using the latest version of Demo Framework, the 4.x branch. This is what comes out of the box. I haven't installed anything. I haven't created any content. This is all how this stuff works. So let's take a look at a few of those pieces that we talked about, and then you'll kind of get a sense of how this works. So first, let's just go grab an image. And I'm going to go to Unsplash. There we go. Does somebody want to give me just a topic or something to look up? Off the top of your head?
Penguins.
Penguins. Right. Good call. Oh, that's just adorable. Okay. So I'm going to grab the ID for this. Great. Come in here. Cute penguinos. Cute penguins. Put in the ID. It's going to pull it up for me. I will not add anything else right now. This is good. So now we've got. Oh, and we are using a sub-theme of Claro. So this is basically Claro with a few little changes. We're going to work on it. And this is Media Library. We haven't made any changes to that. It's pretty cool, right? I mean.
Is Media Library in Claro?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. So if I go in here and let's look at the table view, because I actually want to go in and edit it. Okay, so we've got the image. I'm going to remove the Unsplash ID because that's how I'll get the little tool here. So I'm going to make these cute little penguins. There's that focal point that I just set, and that's it. That's all I have to do for focal point. It's now set. So that when I go in and I take a look, you can see that as it's regenerating all the different image styles, it's going to be focused on the important part. And if I don't like this, like you can see it's a little bit over. So if I put it maybe here, oh yeah, see, look at that. The hero for the mobile, that's perfect. And as a content creator, someone who's managing this stuff, I mean, that's pretty darn simple, and I don't have to worry about anything. Now it's all taken care of for me. So let's go ahead. Now we've got an image in there. Let's go create an article real quick. So, cute penguins. This is so adorbs. Type is it's going to be an article, right? Because we can change things around. Let's go ahead and, again, using a media library, some little things. Like you can see I can switch between a grid and a table here. I can select things. It's fuzzing out the ones I haven't selected. You can see down there it's telling me that this field only allows one image, but if I had 3 images, it would tell me how many I could choose. That's all media library out of the box. I don't have to do anything for that. Some of this is stuff that we had before in Demo Framework, but we had to do this stuff. And now Core is going to take care of it for us. My goodness, it's just so lovely. Okay, great. So we're going to put that in place. And then let's get some lorem ipsum going. As much as I do this, I should probably have like a browser extension or something that does this. There we go. Great. Now there's put this in place. Of course, this is just CK Editor. Personally, this doesn't come out of the box, but I do like the full screen option in CK Editor. I highly recommend that feature. And then, of course, you've got the ability to do things like do embeds. So this would be a media, or we can grab content. And so we'll just choose, here we go. We're still working on the content browser, as you can see, but it's not that bad, considering where we are right now. Okay, centered, good, embed, nice. Okay, cool. And we can do that for anything, so any type of content, which is really nice if you're talking about like e-commerce. If you pulled your product data in using Migrate API, you can embed products. So when someone's writing a blog post about how great these tennis shoes are, they can put the shoes themselves for sale, which is a really great story to tell. I won't worry about tags. We'll go ahead and publish it. And at the box, here we go. So from a user experience perspective, this is already pretty easy, pretty comfortable. I still think there's a lot more we can do and we're going to do, but this is so much better than just what comes out of the box in Drupal, although at this rate, eventually Core is going to catch up to us and put me out of a job, but it's okay. But this is where we see, you'll notice again, there's no view, there's no edit, I don't have any choice here, but up in the corner I've got this tasks button, and it shows me the status of the moderation, whether there's a draft, whether there's a revision, etc. And I click on this, and here's where I get my option to do things. So for example, if I create a new draft, because we're going to revise this, now I can see that I'm on the draft version. That same toolbar will let me go back to look at the live one back and forth. I can go do that preview like we talked about. And so now I can see what this content is going to look like in all of the different display modes that I've got, which is really handy. Lovely little tool there. And then, as mentioned, since we're here, for the actual content type, we are using Layout Builder to control it, as you can see here. And so actually, if I go in and look at some of these, for example, we've added in some things like the ability to put classes. This is a Bootstrap theme, Bootstrap 4 that we've got in here. So we can add any of those classes that we want to do things. And you can see here actually this article meta, which is like the, how many comments and who the author is. That's actually just a styled view that we dropped in place as a block. And you can see that we've got like this subtitle. We're actually putting in some CSS classes to tweak and adjust it. So all of this is just kind of out of the box. We're not like actually having to create the templates by hand, which can be super, super helpful. Fantastic. And then if we go back, let's see, I'm going to go back to the actual content. Cute penguinos. And now this is where we've got the responsive preview. So again, really, really good tools for your content authors so they can kind of figure out how these things work, what these things are going to look like. Much, much better experience. That actually goes over really, really well with customers. Fantastic. Fantastic. And then if I go back to the home, obviously it's a view, so we're going to see the cute penguins now on my demo site. So if you guys want to play with this stuff, you can go to the Acquia/df on GitHub. The 4.x branch, which is the default one now, is the one that you want. And all you have to do is clone the repo, composer install, and then Drupal site install, and you're good to go. Has anyone heard of Dev Studio, Acquia Dev Studio? It's a tool set that we've been working on for a while. We're actually integrating that with this as well, so that you would actually then be able to go in and use that to quickly spin up a demo on your local, which would be using either Drupal VM or using Docker just to manage that. So all of those different things we're trying to build to make it easier for people to build stuff. One of the things that I'm also trying to do is encourage not only Drupal shops, but implementation partners to know about this, to use it, and to possibly create your own demos that you manage and maintain. You can use this as inspiration, or you can steal it entirely and just add whatever thin layer for your own custom stuff you want on top. And if you find something really, really cool that should be in there, then go open an issue and let us know. Would love to have some more folks chiming in and telling us what we need to do a little bit better. Fantastic. So if anybody wants to grab these slides, there's a bit.ly link that you can use. These are open, so you can go and grab them. You don't have to worry about keeping everything here. And with that, we've got about 8 minutes left, so questions? Has this been helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah. Useful.
I mean, I've been working with Acquia a long time. And one of the things I always found about Acquia is they tend to do stuff for a little bit, and then like remember Drupal Commons, remember content or organizing distribution, or conference organizing distribution. Things just sort of come and go. I find it hard to commit sometimes to Acquia things when I don't know if they're going to be around. Lightning seems to have been going a while.
Well, so I can tell you Lightning is a pretty serious initiative that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Also interesting to note, Lightning came from demo team. Yeah, it wasn't me. I wasn't there at the time. I was at Acquia, but I wasn't on demo team. Brent Wynn created Lightning in Drupal 7 because he saw this need. And then through some internal badgering, we as an organization realized that need was there. And so then the Drupal 8 version is when we got an actual dedicated team. And there's dedicated engineers, and we just hired a contractor, right, to join the Lightning team.
Who's here? Kathleen Druckman?
Yeah.
From Houston?
Yeah. She used to be with the Lace Journal, which loaded.
So
she's working on a lot of these issues.
Yeah, so I mean there's continuous investment there. So Lightning's not going anywhere soon. And Demo Framework, as you can see here, has been around since 2013. Still going strong. And we build all of our demos on it. The only way that Demo Framework would ever disappear, as far as I can see, is if Lightning got so good that we didn't need it anymore. And again, or Core. I mean, I'd be happy with either one. I like my job. I like what I do. I think this is fun. But if all of this cool stuff got into Drupal and it was so good that I didn't need to worry about UX, we'd all be winners. So I will say Demo Framework is not built we don't build it with an intention to use it for a large-scale production site. So we don't do scalability testing. We don't do any of those kinds of things. There's no upgrade path for the config, right? You install the article content type, and that's it. You've got that starting place, and you just go on from there. That being said, there's not a lot here that is weird or different. It's either going to be a contrib module or it's going to be config in the actual distro itself. So pretty standard Drupal stuff. So I wouldn't, again, I wouldn't install Demo Framework for my, large enterprise corporate distribution and run with it. You could. I don't think you'd run into any major problems with it, but that's not what it's intended for. but as something to play with, it's something to do demos to show people, something to experiment with. Sometimes if you just even want to try out a new module or something, it's great to use something like this, because then you get a site with content and you get everything set up. You throw the module in, or modules, you play with them, and you see how they work in a rich ecosystem of what would be a full site. So there's a ton of value that you can get out of this. Yeah. Questions? Comments? So I'm curious, out of everything we showed, is anybody here who didn't see at least one thing that they think that they should at least look into using, whether you use it or not? So everybody got at least one thing? Okay, fantastic.
I wrote down at least 10.
Good. Well, that's good, because, like I said, most of this stuff is it's out there. It's just in the realm of the Drupal module ecosystem. There's so much stuff, and when Drupal 8 first came out, there was a while when I knew most of the modules, and then now it's like it's back to the realm of impossible to know everything. So I find new stuff every day. But this is a really great way, because this is what we do all the time. We're constantly thinking about how do we make it better. So this is a great thing to check back on, even if it's just a couple times a year, and say, what are those crazy demo guys up to now? Like, what do they got going on? What have they added? What have they gotten rid of? All that kind of
It's
stuff.
nice to see Drupal UX catching up to where WordPress was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
I get that argument all the time. Well, look, I just click over here to add media. I get this beautiful interface.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I have this ICME you can use, or ICME.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of these, like that media library, looks so much better.
Well, UX it's been a known problem in Drupal for a long time. Does anybody remember the Spark initiative in D7? It's kind of the precursor to a lot of this stuff. Angie did a lot of work there. So from a community level, we've known this, we've been working on it, and we are starting to see a lot of the results of that, with Claro, with Media Library. But we're still trying to push it, and we've still got a long way to go to make it truly amazing. But if you use some of this stuff, hopefully it'll make your site better, make it easier to use, make your users happier, make you look better, be the hero. Steal our ideas freely, take credit for them as your own, and just make sure you tell other people so that they can do the same. Sound good?
And how are you sharing the content, the content module? So if you build a content for a specific scenario,
Mhm.
are you planning to share that across? Is that would be
So
different?
that's actually one of the reasons why we talked about that content model at the beginning, because that is our default content model across all of our scenarios. So all of our scenarios try to fit inside that model. We really don't want to do other things.
But if you're building a new scenario,
Mhm.
how are you putting up all of them in the demo framework, or is that be somewhere else?
So right now, they probably will be in demo framework. In fact, they live in right here. It's just this file, JSON file. The next thing that we're working on, if we take a look at scenarios, is, and so like I can just export a file with my content right now, or import. The next thing that we're working on is a UI and a discovery tool, so that if you have scenarios in your code base somewhere, it will find them, and then it will show them here, and you can pick which one you want to turn on or off. So that's coming this quarter.
Yeah, that'll.
And what I don't know if this is going to happen, but what I'd love to see is, because this does rely on the Content Hub module, I would love to see some future state where there's some type of public Content Hub where people could kind of subscribe to and share with. So in my ideal vision, which I have no control, so who knows, right? In my ideal vision, you'd be able to install something like this and go get like a list, a library of different content packs that different people from all over the world had added, and you can grab the ones that you want. There's some really cool things we could potentially do, but right now we're doing a lot with what we got, which is pretty good. Other questions? We have 1 minute left. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to the session. I really do hope this was useful. If you do have any questions, any feedback, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at RL Northcutt pretty much in all of the places, including That's my email, rlnorthcutt@gmail, or ron.northcutt@Acquia. Add issues to the project if you want to make suggestions, you want to help out. And if there's anything I can do to help, or if you have suggestions or things, please reach out. I appreciate it. So, thanks, guys.